Hey there. Sitting at the desk about a week removed from the draft. I got PG National streaming on my little tablet. And I'm moving newly drafted players onto their pro prospect lists. And I only have a couple orgs left, so I figured I'd show you, like, hey, this is how these guys get these grades and how they end up getting put where they do on the team lists. So let's try one out here with Milwaukee. Okay, so Milwaukee picked Garrett Mitchell at 20th. If you go onto the draft tab of the board and into the search field, you can type like the little team abbreviation and all their drafted guys will come up. See? Especially if you put the little slash in there, because you get rid of guys whose last name is Miller or whatever. All right, so Garrett Mitchell, drafted 20th, ranked 14th. 45 plus future value on him. This is the future value bucket, where I stick a lot of these big tools, power, speed, but for whatever reason, like there can be several, the hit tool is suspect, or the probability that they get to that power in games is low because of the way the swing works or whatever. So like Estevan Florial and Franchi Cordero and guys like this, whether it's approach or the way the swing works or whatever it is, either year-to-year variance or just like a will this guy produce or not type of variance, this type of player ends up in this 45 plus future value bucket. And that's what Mitchell is, right? Big time raw power and speed. But the swing doesn't really allow for in-game power. It's kind of stiff. It's possible that this changes, but I'm more inclined to believe that like looser, more flexible types of athletes can make these sorts of changes. Mitchell's not that guy. So yeah, he belongs in this bucket for sure. And the other apples to apples comparison that comes to mind is Pirates center field prospect Travis Swagerty, who's a lot of this type of thing, like speed, raw power, swing doesn't really enable it. But he is also like a really terrific defensive center fielder, like really, really good. Such that, he's just going to play every day, despite what might be mediocre offense below what the physical tools indicate. So with Swagerty being a 50, Mitchell, who's not quite the defender, but in most other ways is very similar, belongs behind him a little bit. So these are all just supporting things, right, as far as how we arrive at this. Then as far as where he goes on the Brewers board, right, so we have Terang at the top, he's a 50. And then Mario Feliciano and Tristan Lutz are the 45 pluses. So Mitchell belongs somewhere in here. Immediately the defensive fit makes you want to put him ahead of Lutz, who's sort of an immobile corner guy. Mitchell and Lutz are the exact same age. Lutz has performed at high A, like up through high A. As a young for the level regular, was basically 20 years old in a league full of a lot of like 22 and 23-year-old college prospects in their first full season. He's been an above average offensive performer relative to the league average at every stop, even though he's been young. Like Mitchell, his swing is not optimized for power. Probably more important that it gets to that point for a guy who's definitely a corner outfield fit. With Mitchell, I could see him like really shortening up and just sort of punching hard contact all over the place and then running. So I think I'd rather have Mitchell. The defensive fit and pathway toward viable offense at that defensive home seems greater. Less's chance of hitting like 30 bombs and hitting in the middle of an order is like much better, but we have to see a tweak of some kind to get there. Whereas Mitchell, we also have to see a tweak, but it could go in a couple different directions that seem pretty reasonable. He's more outs. So like I would take Mitchell, I think, over Lutz. And then as far as Feliciano is concerned, the defensive stuff is pretty much a wash. Feliciano is not a great defensive catcher, but I bet he stays there. And his bat-to-ball acumen is just superior. I need to get the max exits in here. But yeah, Feliciano is a little bit younger than Mitchell, a couple months. He's already been through AA, or been to AA, and has performed, dealt with some injury stuff. I just feel much better about his hit tool. And that is like the most important thing ultimately. So I think what we're going to do is we'll stack Feliciano, then Mitchell, then Lutz. Okay, so we've placed the first round guy now, right? So let's move on to the second rounder, Freddie Zamora. I like Freddie Zamora a lot. Had him ranked 35th. He went 53rd. All, like, sort of in a vacuum, I had a 45 on Zamora, and I would prefer him to the Nick Lofton, Jordan Westberg types, the other kind of comp round infielders who are multi-year performers at a big school, like those guys, from hey, this guy can really pick it at shortstop, the athletic long-term projection of the body, on Zamora superior to like the maxed out type guys like Lofton and Westberg. So without the ACL injury that robbed Zamora of all of 2020, he would just be a 45 and would be ranked ahead of the guys in the draft class who kind of went in that compound area. Like if I go back here to looking at the class as a whole, here's Westberg at 32. Here's Lofton at 33. They're like the lower 45s in the class. Justin Foscue at 26, also this type of player. Okay. But again, without the ACL injury, and with another year of performance from Zamora, he's just a 45, and certainly in the mix with these guys. And my typical instincts are to move players like Zamora ahead of these guys, like higher variance type player like Zamora. But he's a 40 plus. So over on the Brewers side of the board, the logical place to start is with Eduardo Garcia, who's another 40 plus future value shortstop. Like Zamora, has been out for a while with an injury. So Garcia and Zamora are pretty similar, except with Zamora, we've got 2 years of college data about that support evaluation of his hit tool and approach. So I think I'm going to take him over Garcia. I think I'm definitely taking Aaron Ashby over Zamora. I'm pretty sure that guy's a power lefty bullpen arm at the very worst. And I just would rather have that guy. So then, where does Zamora fit in the Kelly Laser group? You're kind of projecting on all three of them. Kelly, you're just projecting on everything other than the arm strength sort of needs to be installed. And he gives you lots of reasons to hope it will, right? Like, it's a big, graceful, frame and delivery, Midwest JUCO guy. He's only 20 and a half. Like, these are all things indicative of development that maybe is lagging behind a little bit. But all that stuff does have to develop, doesn't it? And then you've got Max Laser at 7, who sits like 88. His fastball has all kinds of other traits that help it play up, but he still just throws 88. And I clearly buy it. This is why he's here. But you do have to cross your fingers and hope that it works. Zamora's a little bit more traditional. just a more traditional chance to be an everyday player sort of prospect, where it's feel for contact, modest plate discipline, plays a premium position, and is undervalued because of injury, and who I think has a chance to grow into enough power that he's hitting in some sort of everyday role as a shortstop. Whereas these guys, they are probably valuable parts of a staff if things come together. But probably not producing value on par with like a 50, which is what Zamora I think has a shot to be. So I'm going to stick Zamora between Ashby and Kelly. All right, I'm having like pretty consistent latency issues because my hardware is just insufficient. So buy a FanGraphs subscription. Anyway, the 40s on the Brewers list. Hayden Cantrell. First, let's say I'm not likely to stick any of them above Devin Williams. Any of the Brewers' 40 future value draftees. Like everyone from Williams up has a pretty clean line towards some sort of big league utility. A lot of these pitchers in their mid-20s especially. And the ones who don't, the variance is such that they have a shot to be regulars. Joe Gray, Carlos Rodriguez, Peyton Henry maybe. If not Peyton Henry, pretty high probability backup. Right. Thomas Dillard, 3-year track record of hitting in the SEC probably separates him from the Cantrell, Warren, Weimer group. Even if on the surface, switch hitting guy with power and no defensive value is like pretty close to how you could describe Cantrell. I think the impact with the bat that I think Cantrell has a chance to do sticks him ahead of David Hamilton for me at the moment. Hamilton's going to be really interesting to watch this year, assuming that we get to. Didn't play in 2019 as a college junior, nor after the draft. Was a high school player who I really liked coming out. Had a good sophomore year at Texas after a bad freshman one. Really like defense contact-oriented shortstop who, fingers crossed he's gotten jacked in the last year as he's been like rehabbing. But until we see that, we can't assume that that's happened. So I'm going to stick Cantrell ahead of Hamilton. Just more of a chance to make an offensive impact and play a bunch of positions, whereas Hamilton is more like defense, shortstop, maybe the other infield spots. So we got Cantrell there. Joey Weimer, the outfielder from Cincinnati, has more like traditional right field tools, power, arm strength, swing and miss. Swing and miss is coming from a swing that is kind of jacked. I'm going to take Victor Castaneda over Weimer. I think it's pretty close. Castaneda's like low 90s with an out-pitch splitter. Pretty firm middle relief grade on him. He was in the low 90s as a starter last fall, so I assume that he'll tick up into like the 2 to 5 range with that splitty out of the bullpen. A pitcher inventory guy like that, high probability staff member. I think I'm going to take over Weimer, who I think to beat anything at all probably needs a swing change. The ceiling, if he takes to it, is pretty substantial. Like if there's a swing change and he performs, then he probably belongs somewhere between Gray and Henry, like in that range. But for now, Joey Weimer, power, arm strength, right field, really risky swing and miss stuff. He's going to be behind Castaneda. I still like him more than these catcher inventory types who are like, backups at best. But because the inventory at the position across the league is so low, I'm on them as 40s rather than 35 pluses. I'm going to put Xavier Warren at the back of this group. He was announced as a catcher. The hope is that he's a catcher plus some other stuff. Probably doesn't hit for enough power in games to be an everyday guy at any of those spots. But as a useful bench piece who provides defensive flexibility, switch hitter, puts the ball in play, pretty interesting. David Frye is that guy already, has more raw juice than Warren, is several levels ahead of him. Like Frye's an okay catcher, he's definitely like a 40. But plays first, plays third, the outfield corners, like catching plus playing the four corner spots with some power as a bench guy, like that's pretty interesting, and I'm hoping that's what Warren is, but Frye is just closer to being it. So I'm going to take Frye over Warren and put him here. So you could head over to the board, click the 2020 updated drop-down tab, and you'll see all of the newly drafted players on their new team's prospect list. And if any of them don't sign, then I'll just take them off. Like maybe it'll be 2 or 3 guys. I'll just take them off when it happens. But for now, they're on here. So go check that out.
Leading off from the White Sox, second baseman, number 4, Ryan Altenberger. Now batting, center fielder, number 2, Alec Thomas. Now batting, designated hitter, number 17, Joe Adele. Sox go down in order in the first.
Welcome to Game 3. This is top 5. There have been fireworks so far. We're leading 5-3. German Marquez was knocked around early on and then kind of settled in. He's responsible for 2 of the runs. Hit a 2-run shot in the bottom of the second. But he's in trouble again here in the 5th. The early trouble that he was in ran his pitch count up. So with Colin Moran up and this lineup going lefty, lefty, lefty for the next 3 hitters, I think I'm going to remove him. I'm deciding if I want to put Moran on or maybe pitch around him, but regardless of what's happening here, it's a 2-run game. Where's Newcomb's usage? 46%. We're going to go with Sean Newcomb. And I'm just going to put him in the pitcher spot. I've thought about maybe pitching around one of these hitters and then doing something interesting with the defense that will allow us to turn 2. Okay, so the infield playing back, soft chopper to third. Hicks is going home. I am not going to throw home. I'm going to take the out. And then I'm going to pitch around Naylor and maybe Tapia too. Well, wild pitch doesn't matter anymore. So now we're just going right at these guys. All right, so it's a tie game now here in the 5th. And we've got at least favorable matchups, but could not wiggle out of trouble early on in the 5th here and end up with the tie game. Welcome back. We're bottom 8. Had a big hit in the 7th that really kind of put this one away for us, theoretically. But yeah, here we are, bottom 8. We've got a lefty reliever in Rowan S. Elias on the mound. I don't think I'm going to do anything strange coming up here with Hayward. I just want the defense in, so even though it's left on left coming up here, I don't think I'm going to do anything about that. I think I'm going to hit and run, though. Get a little bit of action. Interesting idea. All right, great. Maybe we'll get an extra base out of this guy. Cool. So yeah, 3-run lead here in the 8th. Barring something unforeseen, I think this one's pretty well in hand.